We didn't.
Okay, so now it's learn Chumash. So we need Chumash. Does anybody have Bible? There's some more Bibles here. Two more, whoever wants to share with somebody. Obviously, you all know about that. Okay, this is a series based on two mamorim of the Beis Yaakov of Ishbitz. It's very, very unique, very special. I love teaching it because every time there's more depth and insight to it. It's together like the plus says the Mishnah Enko Chodesh Tachas Hashemesh. So Tachas Hashemesh En Chodesh L'Malam and Hashemesh Yesh Chodesh. What's with L'Malam Hashemesh Yesh Chodesh? Something celestial. What does that mean? You say Nu Chedusha Torah, brother. If they're Chodesh, that means they're not Torah. So what's meant to say it's Chodesh? It's just Rashi writes over there. It's a tinik, marshal ma'adav like a tinik, which is yoinik from its mother. Calls man shememashmish badad moitza batam. That's what he writes. Every time he gets into it, he finds another flavor. I don't really remember, so I can't say. But at least Rashi obviously knew it. So kach divrei Torah kol ma shememashmish boy moitza batam. So they understand from there the getter of chodesh is tam. Now that's probably the mocker. Reb Chaim Volozhiner writing in Keser Rosh. Keser Rosh is in the back of Siddur Agra. There are Haggis Reb Chaim Volozhiner, which are written by some of his Talmidim. So he wrote, what is Chidusha Torah? It's not what you people think it is. Chidusha means to understand clarity. That's what it means. To understand things clearly. Because that's a very big Chiddush, because most people don't. Okay, so the idea for you to have a clear understanding, that's Chiddush Torah. That's what that's Be'itzim Chiddush Torah. Everything else, Tazov Shtiyot, Chaval Azman, don't waste your time. Just understand clearly, okay? That's Chiddush. And it comes from this Nekuda, called Mashem Mashem by Moitze Boitam. He connects subjectively to the food in a way that he has a certain unique subjective flavor or taste. Okay, that's your taste in that different Torah. So I always love this piece. I've been learn every year all over again, and every time I don't know why, I see other things or more things, so let's see what we can do. The question which was asked, which is really an interesting question, let's just start again, Perek Beis, just how it starts. So in Perek Beis, he starts, this is in the aftermath, after he explained the difference between Tselem and Demus, and he explained that Tselem, Elokim, if you remember, Tselem means that unique attribute of the human being that he's capable of what we call conceptual thought. The only reason God is interaction with the Homo sapien because he's capable of that, capable of conceptual thought. How else? In other words, I think I once mentioned functional thought. Know how to build a dam. The beavers do too, and he doesn't go to MIT. You know what I mean? How to swim upstream back to where it was spawned. The salmon knows and doesn't need ways, and that's a natural reality. That which is needed, God, the great designer of the evolutionary process, created a reality where everything has what it needs for its existence, for whatever existence was planned for it. Okay. But that's what's there. Every bird has a different wingspan needed to get where it has to go, and has different beaks to get the food which is appropriate for it, and so on and so forth. The Homo sapien, so therefore they actually are born quite ego b'yomi kori ego. They have the functional knowledge necessary. It's unbelievable. It's interesting sometimes to see, of course, for learning how to hunt, takes the cubs. I don't mean the Chicago cubs, the cubs of a lion, a certain training process, but they have it basically there. It doesn't take more than a half a year, and they know how to do it. They actually win the series. They do well. So you have to understand. So we don't do that. We're vulnerable little animals. We have to actually go to spend years of schooling, training, college, and then who knows if you get a job. And then finally, you're going to build your bridge or write your program or whatever you're going to do. Okay, so it's interesting. So as far as the ma'asim shebachayim of basic existence, it seems to be that the animal. That's what the Gemara says. Yutush kodmecha. Don't be haughty. The mosquitoes obviously precedes you. It's much more developed than you. The only thing that you have that the animal doesn't have is the capability of conceptual thought and even formulating it in conceptual ideas. I'm sure that animals feel what's good and what's bad, because they know something's harmful. It's a bad sensation. They run away from it. They something which is pleasurable. They will get close to it. I mean, shen b'shus harabim, halana also. It means it's driven for hano. It's a pleasure-seeking animal, and it's a distance itself to a certain extent with its knowledge from distance. I think that nature, God, or whatever the design has created, that it has basic instincts of what to distance itself from. Okay. Once again, I think actually more than man. But I don't think it can conceptualize. We have no proof that it can conceptualize it into an idea. This is good, this is bad. There's a basic intuitive reality of running away from, but actually it's very nice. Halabai, we should have that with mitzvahs and ma'asim tovim. Maybe life would be much more easier. Just automatically do the right thing and distance yourself from the wrong thing. I think we create that through our conceptual thinking and training ourselves to develop that type of idea, but it comes from our thinking, from our value system. As you have a mental value system, animals don't have that. They have emotions. I think it was described how I was witness to a mourning ceremony of elephants. It was unbelievable in Kruger Park. They were much mourning. They were the matriarch there. The mother there is the gavra. The schorim are they're just around. They're the shamoshim. It's like in chess. You understand? The schorim run around. The queen is the one that's type for smokim. Okay. It's in the animal kingdom. It's that way. It's interesting. The lion, he's like the koilenik with the strymel, and he sits there and waits for the bald, literally a chassidish lady, the bald lioness, to go and get the parnasa. She's the hunter. As it's done, and he's Shevet Levi. You understand? He sits with the strymel dorten, and he waits for his meal. And then he gives them shirayim. I don't know if you know. If you don't know now, you do. So South Africa. This is all I understand from Africa. So this is basically, they are trained to have what they need. And the obvious question is the Homo sapien has something which is really not necessary for functional thought, for functional existence, that conceptual thinking. Why do we want it? Why do we need it? Why would the grand master designer of the process create a brain which is capable of conceptual thinking, transcendent thought, etc., and so forth? I mean, I understand emotions. All animals need emotions in order to protect, to feel good or bad, in order to survive. But if you have the capability of also formulating it into profound ideas, which are quite conceptual, we have a whole different idea. They don't write literature. They have language. They communicate. They do. They actually communicate also anger, fear, love. Yeah, they do. If I saw two bluebirds, man, they were fighting over in a cave, but that wasn't love, that was lust. So I knew they had lust. Okay? They were almost fighting. It was unbelievable. It's also in the park. You get to see things when you go with the right people in the right places, not where tourists go. You see enormous things. So you really want, so they have all that. So you're Baltaiba and the animal Baltaiba. That's what it's the behemoth. Yeah, the behemoth does the same thing. You're in this, there's nothing different than you and him. The only difference is you can actually formulate it into an idea. You can decide to live by it or not to live by it. You're not programmed. Okay? And you can extrapolate from there to other ideas. You can write poetry. You can write philosophy. You can deduce, think, and make mistakes also with your logical thinking. The animal doesn't make them. His intuition says. He's not. I never saw an overweight animal except for when it was in captivity. There is no overweight animal. The only overweight animal which is free is the human being because he's not free. There is no overweight. Fat cats, they live in the Upper East Side. You understand? Overweight dogs wearing Burberry sweaters, they walk on Broadway. And I told you, I once saw it was so pathetic. This guy walking with two small little chihuahuas wearing their Burberry sweaters on Broadway. You know, that's on Upper West Side, New York. I mean, I don't buy a Burberry sweater. Okay, maybe you can buy it in China, you know, for $2. But a real Burberry, what am I crazy for the dumb little twin chihuahuas? You know, okay. That was the Eleanor Rigby. They're very, very lonely people. They have to pamper their dogs. I understand that. I mamish understand when I sing All the Lonely People, I think of that. So, but at the end of the day, Homo sapien has that, and the question, what for? You must come to the conclusion that for whatever life the Homo sapien has to have, he needs that. If he wouldn't have that, he couldn't fulfill that which the intelligent designer of the process had expected this creature to do. I mean, I know what a woodpecker's for, tick, 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 making holes in trees, okay? I understand different animals. I know what a dung beetle is for in the Serengeti, collects the dung into balls, and he's like a vacuum cleaner. If you know anything that's happening, it's unbelievable. Or the Chachmas HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the Teva. So then your question really should be, you're looking in the mirror, you have X amount of capabilities, and you really don't need it for food, clothing, and shelter, I can tell you right now. You don't. I see a lot of grubba maratzim that haven't thought a profound thought. Miyoim hivoldam va'ad zibulabas, right? So all they think is how to cut a deal with chulu. They never thought, they're not actually bothered with Aristotle's ideas and whether Planck was right or wrong. They're not even not sure who Einstein was. They think he was Jewish. He had something to do with Hiroshima. But their knowledge of physics is the knowledge of a behemoth chai b'oiv. You understand? So what are we talking about? So most people, they're rednecks. They live in Tallahassee, Florida. They drink beer and get happy at Super Bowl Sunday. This has nothing to do with conceptual thought. And, bowling, they don't play golf. They don't drink single malt. Or they're Balatai, they live in Muncie with single malts. That's something else. Yeah, maybe you're smiling, so yeah, we're going to talk about that too. It's aus the Zel Bezach, you understand? At the end of the day, they're not using that part of their brain. It clearly means to say that they're not justifying their existence. It's a nice way of saying about tashkas on their mother's morning sickness and their waste of space, about tashkas on the oxygen. We need to keep the balance of the of Earth. Maybe we should do culling of Homo sapien. It won't sound terrible. They cull animals. You know what I mean? Too many elephants are not good. So maybe people don't think. Now this sounds like terrible, but it's a joking aside. But at the end of the day, it's a demand. It means you are there for intelligence. And that's what the Rambam writes, and also the Ramban, that's what's called Tzelem Elokim. And it's because of that God spoke to man and commands man, because he can understand it, he can comprehend. That's why it says in the first in the Pasuk, when man was created, Miyad, it says, Vayitzav, God commanded him. It doesn't say Vayitzav to the animal. It says Vayivorech to the animal, Pru, Vu, Milu, Sa'oretz. There's a bracha to the animal, but by Itzavis or Odom Lemar, the first idea by commandment is to man, is to Homo sapien. The Rambam brings this raya, we're going to read it in 2 minutes, pointing out that part of the Tzuris Odom includes that relationship of a tzivui. Tzivui is not just do it. Tzivui is a connection between a mitzvah through a tzivui. There's a connection between the commanded, vis-a-vis the commandment. Okay, a certain dialectic relationship has happened here. There's a relationship between two. That is not found when I bless you. I can bless you like standing on Har. Usually I don't like going to graves. When I'm in Tzfat, I'm going to go to every caver over there. You can spend the whole day. Stand on top, say, hey guys, good afternoon. My name is Mendel. My mom's name is Miriam. If you can do anything for me, I'll be very happy, and then I go back. Okay, so that's, and I covered Tzfat. Okay, so I mean, you do it that way, you can read more, okay? Just like 100 graves that go to everybody, start scratching. Say, hi, guy. If you hear, so you can hear from on top. If you can't hear, we'll talk to you when you're there. If you're hard of hearing, who cares about you? Okay? So I'm just saying, it's an approach. That's what you're going to be running, get out of there within 2 minutes, okay? Yeah, okay, I think that's the way to do it. Not very Heimish, but I think it's very Hamish. It makes sense. Okay, anyway, getting back to the board. So if that's the case, here's the question that was asked. If that's true, that the idea of formulating ideas, the concept of good or bad, only happened to man after he rebelled, and before he was less than animal. Now, what does it mean he was less than animal? Here's something which is interesting. Let's read the Lashon. Go to the second paragraph. Amar Makshe, Nirami Pshat. Oh, God, well, you guys have something else. Yeah, Amar Makshe, you're in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th line, 4th word. Amar Makshe. The person who asked me this question said, "Near Ami Pshat Katuv," it would seem to be from the pashas of the Psukim, Ki HaKavanah Rishonah Ba'Adam, the initial intent of man, Sheyeh Kashar B'alei Chaim, should be like all other animals, L'lo Seichel V'lo Tfunah, without intelligence or wisdom. V'lo Yavdil Ben Tov V'Ra. Now let's understand that means. Obviously, the animal also discerns between good and bad. It means it discerns between the value of good and bad, the formulated concept of good or bad. The animal does not live. He experiences good and bad. He reacts to it immediately. A little child which can't conceptualize, but you put him next to a fire, you put his finger there, and then he will know not to be there. If you give him something sweet, he will know to yap, yap, yap to get it again. That's called, he can experience it and react naturally, intuitively to the experience. That doesn't mean he can formulate, this is good for me, and therefore this is bad for me, therefore. That intelligent reality of not just reacting intuitively, but understanding this is this, and therefore I will, that they don't formulate. They're not thinkers. So he says, it seems to be they were like animals. They lived with intuition, but they did not have the capability of, shall we say, of a cerebral intelligence of even that. There was no conceptual thought. The idea of good is a concept. It's defining, it's a certain, like bad is a concept. You have, each person here has a different understanding of what it means. It's an idea. Animals don't have those ideas. So that's what he's saying. He's basically saying, Kishar B'alei Chaim, L'lo Seichel Lo Tfunah V'lo Yavdil Ben Tov V'Ra. So I have to explain this. Does not mean he doesn't discern experientially. That's totally not true. It means he cannot formulate it conceptually. Otherwise, this Rama would make no sense. Okay, because Shehim, right, is when he rebelled, Hevilu Miryo, it was that this rebellion brought him a certain Hashleimut Atzuma Yuchet Ladam. It's only then, through the rebellion, that he attained the perfection, the unique, special perfection, which is unique for Homo sapien. What is it? What is the unique thing which is for Homo sapien? He has the capability of discerning. Once again, I mean conceptually. I repeat again, you always have to add that word because you think it's something more than animal. So I hope you all understand that animals react to things which are painful and pleasurable, good for them, and bad. But maybe I should explain the word good and bad. Good means something which makes me feel good. Bad means something which makes me feel bad. That's why, for example, I would imagine if you ever stepped on a cockroach in this area over here, in this farmland over here, it was good for you and bad for the animal. Isn't that true? You're probably going to eat this terrible supper here, which is multi-carbohydrated. It's going to be a mixture of probably burekas with noodles, with bread, and I'm trying to think of all the other carbs they put into there. And you're going to say, hey, and French fries. And you say, oh, this was good. If you'd ask me, this is terrible. This is some of mother's. Okay, if you ask your nutritionist, you say, you're mad, man. Get an apple. You know what I mean? But that's what's called good, right? What's good? A good French fries, good, thick, industrialized hamburger, which God knows what's in there, okay? And obviously Coca-Cola, which creates corrosion even on metal, okay? So you're obviously going to drink that, and that was a good supper. So the word good is the subjective thing, because it's nothing more than creates a certain sensuous feeling, which you translate, makes me feel good. You makes you feel good. That's what good really is. There's no objective good. The word good is by definition subjective. The word bad is by definition subjective. Here, there's nothing more that I can say than Adolf Hitler. He murdered my whole paternal family, literally. 12 uncles and aunts, my brother, grandparents, the whole spiel. Okay, my father was Mamish Uden Mutzumish, the only one of a whole family. I only have my father had fourth cousins that were left. Okay, did Hitler think he was doing something good? He thought he was redeeming the world. He really did. I read him. I read Mein Kampf. Okay, he really thought he was saving the world because the world is basically infected with the Judeo-Christian sickness called morality, which now empowers the meek, and is against the natural course of science should be, which normally it is the meek should go down and the strong should survive, like in the jungle, like anywhere. And he felt this was a perversion of the natural state of man. He was actually doing them a favor. Fact of the matter is that no one said anything about it. So whether you know it or not, I mean, I think they actually thought that the Allies, we're not going to get involved in this, but do what you want to do. You know what I mean? Let's face it. I think he was sure that 500 years later they give him a medal. He definitely thought he was redeeming the world. He thought he was doing a good thing. When he said that my brother was vermin, he meant it. He did. He meant it. He always meant it. He wasn't lying. He was telling a truth, his subjective understanding of reality. He was redeeming the world from the Shylocks and so on and so forth. I mean, Christianity was doing it the whole time. The Crusades, what were they doing? They were slaughtering us like it's going out of style. I mean, there were many. The scale of the Holocaust was unbelievable. But the fact that we were massively murdered through generation through the Christian Church, are we kidding? I mean, it's terrible. No, did anybody say there's saints of people who murdered us? They made them. It became a Rabbi Tzaddik. They were beautified and became. They go to their kibbutz to say hi, etc. They have a yahrzeit. They do a yahrzeit suda. They have rebbes. They have a Rabbi Tzaddik. So a saint is a Rabbi Tzaddik. They have yahrzeit sudas. I don't know if you look at your calendar in America. There's Mr. X's day, Mr. Y's day. They have it like Beimer. They have Remer Belanesh. They have the same thing. No difference between this grave hopping here and the grave hopping there. It's all the same idea. And I understand why Talmudic Judaism is slightly different. But yeah, is anybody, do you think there's anything bad? Adayom Hazeh, they're called Kedoshim. Adayom, the Thomas of York, is a child which they murdered all of York because they said that this kid was killed by the Jews for the Pesach. God Almighty, in other words, there's still a person beautified and sainted because he was killed by Mesiras Nefesh because the Jews killed him. Officially, they don't believe it. The answer is they do believe it. Otherwise, they should be mafkiyas kedusha, paka kedusha minei. I don't understand. Hadait to the Rabbanim Mekadosh. They said never push it. So let's understand. So is it good to kill Jews? I don't think so. But enormous segments of society, Western society, do think so. Adolf Hitler definitely thought so. He was doing a great thing for the world. I mean, let's be honest about this. Here, the General Secretary of the UN, which was President of Austria, Kurt Waldheim, was an SS officer. Oh, he's one of them that didn't know. Give me a break, we all know what happened in Austria. So there it says, yeah, Gesundheit. Because the world thinks they did something good. They definitely thought they did something good. Let's understand this in the honest truth. Now, I don't go back there. I don't go to Poland. I don't go to Lithuania. I don't go back there. I don't do these heritage things. I don't even know how anybody can, but go. Whatever it be. I don't go there. Too much death in my eyes. I still live that. So is this good or bad? Terrible for me. I imagine terrible for any Jew, okay? Not terrible and good for multiples of people at the time. Let's be honest about it. Today, there's a certain, and things have changed also in the Western world from what happened right after the war, slowly but surely. Again, the skinheads are running around Europe, etc. They just had a Jew beat up in the middle of Borough Park. Was it yesterday or the day before? It's there again, slowly but surely. So I'm trying to say so good and bad are subjective terms. There's nothing more than describing something that makes me feel good that makes you feel good, bad and good. So bad and good are totally social convention. Nothing more than that. It's what we collectively feel is good, what we collectively feel is bad. It's like beauty.
So you're saying that there is no objective truth? Or there is no objective
You wouldn't know about it. I didn't say truth. I said good and bad. I never said the word truth here. There's objective truth. 1 and 1 is 2 is an objective reality. Whether it's good or bad highly depends whether it's 1 million that I owe the tax man or 1 million that I profit of a deal. That's good or bad, okay? But it is too, whether I like it or not, okay? You understand? Is the earth round? If I would say it's good, will you say, I say it is round, you will say that's good. What would I tell you? Irrelevant, okay? It's like someone tells me the shear was nice. Totally irrelevant. Questions whether it's true or not. Nice, your wife should be nice. Totally irrelevant. It's irrelevant. It's like saying 1 and 1 is 2 is nice. idiot. You know what I mean? The reaction is basically you don't understand truth. It made you feel good. A self-centered idiot. Okay, you're not connected to the idea for itself. It gave you pleasure. That's what I care about. Couldn't care less. Take a massage. You know what I mean? Versteh nicht. I mean, it's other emes or sheker. It's very simple. שזה יפה, לא רלוונטי. פשוט לא רלוונטי. When I had people that, oh, Rabbi, that was brilliant. How do you know my IQ? It's brilliant. Do you know my IQ? Should I tell it to you? So no, brilliant means it was enjoyable in England. When I say brilliant, it means enjoyable in England. Why would I care? תותי לא מעניין אותי אם נהנית או לא נהנתה. השאלה שלי אם זה נכון או לא נכון. Do you also have ingrown toenails? I don't know. You want to tell me about your pleasures? Do you enjoy French fries? I mean, it's totally irrelevant. I find the language is so shallow that it's beyond, in my ideas, it's quite contemptuous. But once again, when you're trained to think in a certain way, it goes that way. But it's irrelevant. But that's how people speak. But it is irrelevant. So good and bad are totally describing your subjective reaction to something. True or false is a reaction between a source and a derivative. Is the derivative synchronized with its source? If I say apple tree and it grows oranges, and it is an apple tree, that means there is a non-true phenomenon. Or if I see this and I say, wow, that's a cup of water, which means to say my perception of this is not synchronized with what it is. Okay? Therefore, I think I'm going to drink it. It's actually a microphone. Okay? So in other words, that's what happens is that when you say something is not true, that means if, let's say, for example, your perception is not true, because you perceive something X and it's actually Y. You thought this person is a Talmid Chacham. He's actually Chamar Neisesvar. Okay? So, I mean, what's a Talmid Chacham? Talmid Chacham means one thing. Chamar Neisesvar means something else.
Why is not the same thing with good? You perceive something.
That is totally subjective. Because good by definition means subjective. If it's good for you, it is. Do you feel good about something? So it's good.
Why does it feeling? There are things that are objective.
What? There is nothing objectively good.
Health not objectively good.
There's no, what?
Why is health not objectively good?
Health? Why would it be good? Some people love dying.
Again,
It's a subject of how you feel. It's not good. Is it good to live? Many people will say yes or no. It depends on who. The word good is subjective. Good is a word describing your feelings towards something. By definition, there are people which would love not to live. If you were a slave living in the South, okay, being whipped and I don't know, violated by your master, would you want to live? You're sure that living life would be good? Many of them probably wanted to commit suicide. How many people did not preserve their health in camps and put their faces on the wire in order to be electrocuted? It's totally subjective depending on the situation. No one cannot say, by definition, if toiv means something that makes me feel good, so it depends on my situation. So me is not you, you is not, I do not share toiv with anybody. If something is good for you, it's for you. Something good for me, it's for me. When I say there's a collective toiv, there's a lot of people that react in the same way, but each one for his own reason. There is no real sharing between the toiv. It happens to be a lot of people react the same way, but I react because of my feeling. Unless you think we're all programmed to feel the same way. I think as a Baal Bechira, I feel different things than other people. I definitely do. I experience other feelings of toiv and ra than other people. No question about it. Here, the person which coerces somebody, screams Shabbos at someone riding a car, and because of that, it makes him feel not comfortable. And what do you want from this guy? He don't even know what the Shabbos is. He couldn't care less about Shabbos. It's a biblical error. It's a fossil. Why would he care? He thinks it's good to go to the beach with his girlfriend, and you're screaming Shabbos. You're a nuisance. You're bad. And I don't know, but some people that are doing this will think they're doing something good, right? I'm being Mekayim mitzvah if they think they're Mekayim. This is not a place to talk about that. Or they're venting their frustrations, which releases their hang-ups, which is very logical. That's good for them. So it's very good for them to vent, and very bad for the other guy to hear it. So it really, this is the way it is. Toiv and Ra are totally describing a subjective reaction to something. That's all it is, yes.
So the pasuk says, "Vayar Hashem ki tov." That means
No, that means that he also felt good about things.
that's subjective in regards to God.
Yeah. What's your problem? God felt it's good.
And even if God feels it's good, doesn't mean it's good for.
I fail to understand what it means. It is good for God. Now, there's a new question. Does religion demand that you should train yourself to have God's values? Yes, that's a mitzvah saseh. So it's not an automatic. It's a mitzvah saseh called Valachta B'drachav.
That would make it
But without a mitzvah saseh, so that would now be, it would be, you are commanded to train yourself to have the same reaction to things as God has. So it's once again not objective. It's stable. One thing you can say about it, it's stable. It's something you all have. You are commanded. That's already not. You are commanded to train yourself to be a person to react in that way. Okay. Now each and every one of us is commanded to, but it's not an objective reality. Each one has that. You're fulfilling your command. Subjectively. Yeah, of course. There is no objective good. Can I move on a bit? This is just like a. I thought this was obvious. Okay, but when we talk about right or wrong, good or bad, what does the word right mean? It means to say that if you have, for example, you have you want to get to somewhere, or you want to do something, okay? Is this the right way of getting there? Is this the way which will get you there in the right way? Or are you circumventing, going around in circles? That's very clear. You have a point of exit, you have a point of entry. Are you going there? That's right, okay? Once again, source and a derivative. The source is, I want to get somewhere. The derivative is, how did you get there? Did you do the right thing or wrong thing? That's fair. So when we talk about right or wrong, I can understand, yes, it depends on the source. Okay, compared to the source, the source, is this right? As I said before, apple trees should be growing apples. If apple trees grow oranges, something is awkward. Something is wrong, okay? We're not going to say it's bad. Maybe you like oranges. It's bad or good will not be relevant. Is it something wrong? Yes, it's wrong. Okay? Wait, the Gemara is there for understanding it in the correct way. When someone understands it in a shallow way, that's wrong. Does it make me feel bad? Yeah, to a certain extent. It's when I come to a stage I couldn't care less anymore, because what do I expect from this chimpanzee? So I don't feel bad. I just feel compassion. I feel passion. Okay? That's not feeling, I don't feel bad. I feel passionate. I feel bad. I feel, Nebuchadnezzar, you're such a nice boy. Why? You said it's a pity. You just didn't. Long way to go. But yeah, that's something else. That's not a feel. But sometimes I feel when someone that I care about, that I expect something from, and he says something which is like, woo, off the charts, I get angry. Right? I mean, I get violent. I mean, my Rebbe used to slap me, pull my tie. He says, I told you once. He said, "You're saying Lashon Hara, my mother here? Toises is my mother. How can you say this shtusim? It's Lashon Hara." Okay, he had a reaction of bad. He felt like almost disgust when he heard that. So I can understand that. So that's a klal gadol. So now we know so far, but both of them are conceptual. You can conceptualize your reaction of severa. You can conceptualize right and wrong. Okay, now but experiencing is something else. Now it would seem to be that animals can't conceptualize either. At the most, they experience it and react to it. That's what he means. It doesn't have sveichel v'tvuna. So then he asked this great question. He says, is it possible that we can only, after rebellion, attain the shleimus ha'atzuba miyuchedes l'adam, that capability of transcendent thought, that big part of your brain, which you should be using for conceptual ideas, which is unique for man. Koyach ha'avchana ha'matzui banu shu ha'nichbad b'kol ha'yanim ha'matzuim banu ubo mehuteinu. He adds two words. This is our essence. This justifies your existence. Not using this, your chosser and your mahus. This is what he followed up what he said before. This is your tzelem elokim. Tzelem elokim means exactly that. You're capable of thinking in a conceptual way as God is transcendent and capable and does that. V'hinei zei tema sheyeh onsho shel milyo letet lo shleimut. Shelo hayalo v'hu sechel. Now, sechel, once again, he knew how to tie his shoes. Sechel means, again, doesn't mean functional sechel, because animals have functional sechel. It means conceptual thinking, okay? Let's get this straight. It's like you would say that a person which had rebelled, he sinned abundantly. V'az nulkach, then he was taken by the great creator, and nasa kochav b'shamayim. This is very Aristotelian. The Rambam actually believed that the celestial bodies had very, very profound, intelligent thought that we don't have. That was based totally on Aristotelian, on Greek ideas, which we know now is totally not accurate. You can ask Neil Armstrong if he spoke to the moon when he stepped on it. There's no reason to think that it's true today. Okay, that's something we'll talk about later. The Rambam himself describes in Mar Nevuchim, in Chelik Beis and Dalet, that the Chazal had no Kabbalah on astronomy at all, period. There was a Kabbalah on astronomy, but we lost it. Everything we know about astronomy today, even Shmuel Yarchino, was all we knew from the Persians and the Greeks. Very mefurish. All the science found in Chazal are not with great respect to all the Cherem writers, and the black-bounded book writers, all the science we know in Chazal, the Rambam himself writes, is not from is not Kabbalah Sinai. It's reflecting the knowledge of the mumchim, the cutting edge of science, quote unquote, at the time. Now, if you can understand what was science at the time of the Rambam, figure it out. It's nothing close to what you call science today, and that'd be almost an understatement. They still believed in I don't know, cutting off chickens' heads and doing things like that. Look at this gulas in Chazal. Look at the different things there. You have to take that into account. That's why I hope no one tries to solve the thing. Well, actually, one thing I found the Rajba, which is true today. The Rajba writes that Smer Shel Tzaluv, the nails used for crucifixion, is actually a remedy for joint pains. It's true. It's copper. That's why, because copper is used to remedy rheumatism. That's actually found today. People wear copper bracelets, and it alleviates rheumatic pain. It's actually true. This is my story. But at that time, he didn't know it was copper. I thought it was Masmer Shel Tzaluv. You understand? So you go find someone that's crucified. You know what I mean? So Bismani, the Raj, I guess they kept this crucifixion nail, in the family. They found some guy on there that was crucified. So he writes the Chuvas Rajba dealing with with kaporis. He describes that it's derech ha'amoiri and it shouldn't be done. He says the only thing which is not derech ha'amoiri, although we don't understand why it works, if it's baduk and menusa and it does work, so there's no issue of derech ha'amoiri. But just running around with a chicken, we don't know it works, and there's no mucker for this. He calls it derech ha'amoiri. Beis Yosef, because the Beis Yosef brings this Shuv Siraj, but you can look it up. And the minig of many people do this, right? You go to the chickens, and if you're pregnant, you take 2 of them, a hen and a rooster. It's a ganze chasen. Okay, a person should keep. It's an old minig. It's a minig which developed during the time of the Goyim. The minig was it wasn't that way. During the time of the Goyim, they used to take some kind of a vegetable, fill it with earth, roll it over your head, zek kaparasi, and throw it in the river. Look at the Rishonim bring this. This is old. When did it become to chickens? I don't know. That's very much later. Chickens came in later. I guess they didn't like the earth. They moved into the chickens. One would like to do a study of how it developed. I don't know, but once you understand, that's how it went. So I think Stucca probably is the wisest. Oh, it would be good to get rid of him or bad. He left. You see. Came back. Oh, why are you hitting him? You should be good. Oh, did you actually? Oh, that's it. They come and they like them stand there. You know what happens to them? They turn over, they're dead. Yeah, I come out in the morning. I had like 3 of them over here on their backs. Like yeshiva bachur forgot to wake up. Okay. Okay, so this is the question asked: how could it possibly be that you became like the super intelligent, like this guy, like the star in heaven? Very beautiful. The Rambam says I basically embellished the question. This is the intent of the questioner, but he didn't exactly ask it this way. It's a nice way of saying, for Taish and for Beshert. He translated and embellished to make the question sound the way it is. Hat as please heed, listen to what we're about to say. So here I'm going to, first before we go further, I want to open up a Chumash, and I'm going to add color to this before we go to the question. If you open up the Chumash, we all know that in the Shemos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, There's a certain person which has a big sheet on this across the Tanakh, Professor Mordechai Breuer. I don't know if you ever heard of him or read about him. He has brilliant books on Beraishis, on Moedim. Once again, he has a certain idea as to, usually once you have one idea, but you keep on using it the whole time, it gets, come on, relax, that's lav daf, but sometimes they're brilliant. So Mordechai Breuer, I tell you what he writes, but I forget, the approach I'm going to use is similar but different, because what I'm coming from is based from primary sources, okay? It's as follows. The Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei, what does it mean? So I can tell you Shitas Rishonim. The Rambam himself writes, Yud Kei Vav Kei, he has no translation, but it's a name of God in essence. So Rambam writes somewhere in the Nevuchim, says we don't know what it means, so he writes literally. So we have no clue of the etymology, that's what he writes. But it's the name of God in essence, not describing God in interaction, not the God of. For example, that's why, which is, you'll find there's no shiyuch, there's no yud nun vav to the yud kei vav kei. By Elokim, Elokeinu, Elokechem. We don't have that shiyuch, that owning, connecting to yud kei vav kei. Because you don't have a direct relationship with yud kei vav kei. Yud kei vav kei, as expressed in a certain mode of behavior, he interacts with you. You have no clue of the essence of God. You'd have to be God to understand its essence. You don't even have any clue of what makes him want anything. You only know what he wants. But you have no clue why he wants. Okay? You have no clue of why he wanted you to be or why he wanted the world to be. It's impossible to know. Because that is a will, the will of creation preceded creation, therefore preceded the idea of ideas. It preceded the concept of chachma. So a reason which is not in the world of chachma, how can you ask for it? Is that when I say why, I mean what is the logical reason? Logic is a created form of thought. It's called a proportionate relationship between a cause and effect. Okay? Well, I hate to say it, there is no proportionate relationship between infinity and finite. And that's God, which is infinity, which is the cause, and the effect is finite. So the ultimate creation is basically the illogical phenomenon. Therefore, to ask for a logical reason for illogical phenomenon runs between oxymoronic or just moronic. Take your pick. Okay. It's a steerman obey, and whoever asks you, there's a chlushe, you say rekoyechem u'ute seichel. That's a pun on the Gemara in Makkos. Okay, so basically that's not a question to be asked. So that it makes no sense. It makes no sense to ask the question. I would say it's not logical to ask that question. That would be to ask that question shows that you're not a logical thinker. Why did God create Chachma? Don't know, but there is no why. Okay, the whole creation is illogical. It's a infinity which expresses itself in finite, which basically is not proportionate. I can go more about that, but this is not the place at the time. We're not doing that at the moment. That's another prokim in the Nevuchim. So but I do know one thing. According to Rambam, Yud Kei Vav Kei means it's the source of the essential God, which expresses himself in multiple things. What does Elohim mean? So Elohim, the Rambam himself writes at the beginning of this parak, means master, governor, supreme, powerful. I think you called almighty. Mighty, right, might. Bala Kochas Kulam. That's why it's a name shared to judges, princes, angels, God. Yeah, the judge is mighty. It's a Rashi and Sanhedrin. Elohim, Lashon Sorora, V'Rabbanus. Okay, so that's why you have Elohim Achirim. They're lords. Malachim are called Elohim. Read by Shimshon. His father Menach says he saw Epnei Elohim and we're alive. He didn't see God. Elohim means the master, the great important one. Who's that? Good old angel. Okay, so you're talking about you see the name of Elohim. That's what it means. Okay, so you have to understand. So if that's the case, so Elohim is God expressing himself in might and creativity. Actually, might, to be very specific. Elohim is understood as the idea of taking infinity and constricting it into forms. So one would say creating a finite, by giving form or limitations, is basically Elohim. That's what it's doing. It's the mighty God of creating finite out of from infinity. what you call koach hatzimtzum, capability of constriction. The constriction of things is called Elohim. That's why Elohim is b'gematria teva. Nature is basically, you see the God of nature. What do you see? You see massive energy which are constricted in different forms. They're constricted into different forms. It's the same basic primary matter, which is constricted into different forms. It's a Ramban. The Ramban writes this in the beginning of Parshas Beraishis. So Ramban writes that Beraishis bar Elokim is the Shamayim v'Sa'aretz. Shamayim means the primary matter from which he created all these celestial realities, what you would call ruchnius, or whatever that means to people, because I don't say ruchnius because people think that means emotions. And emotions have nothing to do with ruchnius. It has to do with your nervous system. That's gashmius. As I once said, there is no such thing as soul-stirring music. There is nervous system-stirring music. I do not know that a soul stirs, okay? I had a student once in Ishmat. She passed away, Leilenu. She was a sailor. You know, she lived in San Francisco. She was the old Amaligat Zayton, you know. She was like from the days of Haight Ashbury. So I once said something in class. He says, Rabbi, that can't be true. He says, Joni, why? My soul tells me so. Joni, do you talk to it often? Does it speak French? Does it cry? No, it means I feel that way. So why do you invoke the soul? Forget the soul. You mean your nervous system, you don't feel comfortable with what I'm saying. That's okay. I don't mind people who don't feel comfortable with what I say. I do that the whole time. Okay? You mean I've stirred your comfort zone. Then I agree. So what soul-stirring music really means, it means music to make you comfortable with. Music which will inspire. What does inspire mean? Relax you to go into some dream as if you're standing next to the Gra. Okay? And it allows you to some people use chemicals, try mushrooms, and some people, like Alice in Wonderland is a beautiful story. If you know Lewis Carroll, man, that's like, all of a sudden you see the Mad Hatter, and all that. It's like, you know what that is. You don't know. That's a chemical. Okay, yeah, you see, it's a certain acid, which used to be, whatever. It was actually called acid. There was a song on that called Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. I don't know if you ever heard of that. Beatles, okay. Anyway, so that was a Rosh Hashanah, LSD. Okay, so, or there was a song by Peter, Paul and Mary, Puff the Magic Dragon, live by the sea. You don't think it means the Yamadichon, right? That's capital C for cocaine, okay? If you don't know, now you know. Okay, so that's the end of the day. So we're talking, so that's something, there's music that makes you feel comfortable. Inspired means I am now in a certain mode of behavior, which I'm vulnerable to be told certain things, and I think I'll growing wings. I'll be Icarus. I will fly next to the sun, and then they will all melt, and I will drown in the water. It's true. That's what inspiration actually means. Like, I know I inspire. I do. I know I do. So I know what it is. Okay. These are all reactions. So the cloud is, if you come for something emes, then the inspiration of emes is tremendous. But when it's a chaysa de katra, which was born by B'kamadaf test, which means a sack full of air, which inspires you, you poor guy, you left up in the heavens with air. That's all you have. So inspiration alone doesn't look the soul. It can mean inspiration of the Satan. It can be inspiration of Yetzer Hara. Inspiration alone is a tool. It's a certain psychological tool to get you into a certain openness, vulnerability, whatever it be, allowing you to have either a mind-expanding experience or a more sensual experience. The different things that you can inspire for multiple things. Okay, those are tools. It's what are you inspired to do, and what inspires you is the question on the table. So if it's emes, bravo. If it's just a bunch of demyonis, you poor kid. You and Alice in Wonderland, read Lewis Carroll. It's all the same thing. You're going to a party. So one has to understand, so when we talk about Yud Kei Vav Kei, we're talking about the essential God. Elokim means to say, no, Elokim means we constrict forms. The Bria. The Bria is called Elokim. He took primary matter. I said before, Shemaim is the Chomer from which God created this celestial reality. What does Oretz mean? The primary matter from which God created all of your tangible material worlds. And then that's what he did on the first day. The rest of the days he was like a cookie cutter, now making forms into that primary matter. That's what the Ramban said, that the word bara only happened on the first day. Afterwards, vayomer yehi, which means he had his celestial cookie cutter. Now we're making dogs, cats, whatever it only be, out of the primary matter. It's like in kindergarten. I mean, obviously it's just a mushal, but that's what the Ramban writes. Maybe you should read the Ramban. It's the first Ramban in Beraishit. So what is this? So Yud Kei Vav Kei means Elokim means who created form, matter. Matter is form. Has form. There's no matter with no dimensions. For goodness sakes, I in Magid Mishnah Shabbos by Ksutamech L'Shura. Right? Remember that? It's unfortunate Magid Mishnah Shabbos Perikid Zayin on that. That's a double passion. So Yud Kei Vav Kei according to our means the essential God. Elokim is the God of creating form. Mighty. Colorful form, multiple forms, multiple constrictions, multiple. It's also called the one who constricts your behavior, your master, the judge. Also form, constricting. What does chayk mean? Chayk means a certain form of behavior. That's why you also have regular amount of food that you need. It's called lechem chuki. It doesn't mean your law, legal food. Hatrifeni lechem chuki, the food which I need in my normative life, okay? The idea of creating norms, constrictions, boundaries, norms of behavior. Ze amur liot ragil. Ze nikra chok. Okay, so you understand, this is basically Elokim. So now the interesting thing is that in the Chumash, we find that until Sheni, literally, until L'Shmayim V'Oz Bibaram B'Yom Asas Hashem Elokim Shemayim V'Sa'aretz, which is the first two psukim of Perek Beis, if I'm not mistaken. Basically, God is called Elokim. Yet, when in Perek Beis, which starts telling a whole new story, what does the pasuk say when it says? I'll do the pasuk according to Ramban. Beraishit, in the very beginning, bara Elokim, God created Shemayim V'Aretz, two primary matters. And that primary matter was a eulic matter, therefore it was chaotic, had no form. That's Toyu V'Voyu V'Choshech, etc. Talking about the four basic elements that she understands, going back once again to Aristotelian science, okay? Four basic elements which are in a form which she calls a eulic matter, Chomer Hiuli. I'm not going to elaborate on that here at the moment, but first read it, and then if you want, after this, teach you that Ramban Be'iyun, and I can do that, but not now. Okay? It was matter without form. It's what we're looking for in physics. We want to look for primary matter, the Big Bang, all these great accelerators in Switzerland. I can tell you what it is. It's called Ritzayin Hashem, Dvar Hashem. Go find Dvar Hashem in Switzerland. Okay? Maybe. You never know. So at the end of the day, that's primary matter, okay? And then God afterwards takes primary matter and gives it form. That's the 6 days. Okay, I want you to understand that. That's Elokim. Now, that's what happened for 6 days. And then by Shmayim V'Aretz, what's ended? What ended is the stage was set. But did God create this for the stage, or is it just props for history? All this is props for history. The whole world was created is a prop of history. Read Rambam in the Agdam of the Mishnah. Ultimately, for Homo sapien to come, whatever that means, I'm not going to explain at the moment. It means that the Pasuk basically says that man is the player which is going to give meaning, purpose, and direction by utilizing the world around him, either through thought, through action. It doesn't mean creating computers or being technological the way a certain great rabbi once printed and wrote. It means they conceptually understand, because we have to understand science, we understand philosophy, we understand the meaning of things. There are things that will never meet a Jew. There's other things found, a man doesn't know about them on the seabed or in the Amazons, etc. But you can conceptualize, understand it. If you understand and when you see something, you can realize that it enhances your avon of elukus. You just gave it meaning and purpose. Why there's so many of it, etc. This you'll never know, but you understand there isn't one object in this creation which doesn't have within it a unique covered Shemaim. It's a pasuk in Yeshayahu, and he was an honorable man. So we understand that that's true. Kol hanikra b'shmi lichvaydi barasi v'tzarti v'afasisi. So for you, brother dear, I mean, honestly, that's why the Rambam writes, the derech ta'avas Hashem is by looking at the ma'asav u'bruav aniflaim. Get yourself a rock collection. Collect leaves. I don't know what I did. Leaves, rocks, fireflies, you know what I mean? Butterflies. I did all of that when I was like 8. It was great. Your parents, you should die. I don't know what your parents did. You take your children to the zoo. You take them to the planetarium, please. You take them to aquariums. You know what I mean? Yeah, show them Chachmas Abayre and see mice v'bruv on the flame and say, this is God created this unbelievable world. Yeah, I think you should give a mitzvah bachim either a microscope or a telescope. Okay, it'd be a great idea. Teach them Abbas Hashem through Chachmasa Yizbarach. That's the basic, that's how the Rambam writes. It could hypothetically be an unbelievable tzura of developing that, because that's what the Rambam writes. What's Abbas Hashem? Being so acutely aware of God in nature that you're very thirsty to understand what is God and what did he say to us. That's what the Rambam writes. So to introduce a little boy, you're not going to teach him philosophy, but you teach him that there is a God by experiencing it in the world around him. And he understands the enormous chokhmah shel bayra. The Rambam writes there, you're supposed to be aware of the complexity of knowledge of science. That's what the Rambam writes. And you feel yourself biryash felah chashucha ktana mul tmim deo. That's what you're supposed to feel. Would you believe it? That's your reaction to science. You're supposed to see God in science. Science is not a stira to lukus adra, but it's the klei kibble for it. Anybody sees the stira like correlation of the shimish kivachulu. This is stira adraba. Rambam said that is the tool. That's the tool that every John, Dick, and Harry can do it. That's a Rambam. It's like the very base. That's the vehicle for Ava and Yira kimavur barambam. So in Mela we understand. So this is what this is for. Ela told the Shemayim v'Oretz is telling the story of what happened on Shemayim v'Oretz. This is the beginning introducing man. And all of a sudden we have a story that beforehand we said the stage was there. Actually it was there, but it wasn't totally full. We waited for man, for rain to come, and then all the potential would come into realization. That's the first part. The grass did not, it said, desha, right, that's true. That's the broad prop. But what really happened factually, yes, it was all prepared. When did it come up with man? Why? So Rashi writes, as he brought down the Medrash, V'adam ayin lavodas ha'adama, there's no person which is makir b'tivasin shel kshamim u'mevakesh aleim. You're living here in Eretz, that's an important Rashi. Until there's a Adam which is makir b'tivasin shel kshamim u'mevakesh aleim, the grass is not going to come up. Unbelievable. Okay? But once he did, it came up. Okay? That's the v'shtei da. And then all of a sudden, it's interesting to look, this whole El Toldus is talking about man, and suddenly we describe how God made him, and where he put him, and basically he gave him a wife, he was bored, he couldn't find, he was defining reality, he did speed dating with the animals, finally he got him a wife, whatever happened here, and then all of us, that's Perek Beis. What's God called in Perek Beis? Constantly, with no change, Yud Kei Vav Kei Elokim. And then in Perek Gimel, when the curious lady talks to Mr. Nachash, wonder what he looked like, but obviously he was a very intelligent animal at the time. He went through more metamorphosis. Now, well, we can do Mikra or Belazar and say this was Satan, which looked like a Nachash, but the Pashtus is Kimavur B'Mikra. Yeah, it was a Nachash. The Nachash had to then walked on too, and obviously could communicate to the lady. It's very interesting. It was very Orum B'Kol Achayis, and whatever the story is, I'm not going into fact or I don't care about that at the moment. Let's hear the biblical narrative. And he seduces her to eat this, and all that's very true. And he's still called Yud Kei Vav Kei Elokim. When did it stop being called Yud Kei Vav Kei Elokim? You know when it is? At the end of Perek Dalet, when he gets thrown out of Eden. When that chapter of history is finished, God is not called Yud Kei Vav Kei Elokim. From Perek Dalet and further, When man goes to his next stage of existence, he's now outside of the garden. He's called alternatively either Yud-Kei Vav-Kei or Elokim. Why? This is not my makom at the moment. The name doesn't come together. It's only together in Eden when man was originally created until his expulsion. At that point in time, further, it does later meet. It only meets in very rare places. It meets only when we discuss our fundamental beliefs. Shema Yisrael, Havaya Elokeinu, Havaya Echad. That's Yud-Kei Vav-Kei Elokim. V'yadat hayem v'shavosel v'avecha, we're talking about Matan Torah. Ki Havaya hu Elokim, b'shamayim mal, v'la'oz v'tachas ein oid. Atar eisa ladas, also talking about Matan Torah. Ki Havaya hu Elokim, b'shamayim mal, etc. Yes, that's true. And when the Jews had to reconfirm their commitment to God on Mount Carmel, they had, at the time, Achav had killed, if you recall, hundreds and hundreds of prophets. Hundreds and hundreds of prophets. There were hundreds that were actually saved. Avadia hid them, if you recall, in your Tanakh. That's the famous widow with the two sons that didn't have what to pay for the fellow that was in debt, and the debtor was going to sell the sons, and they had the miracle of the oil, making a lot of oil of all the flats in the courtyard. That's the famous Haftarah. Okay, so that was her husband had over 100 prophets in two caves. He was feeding them. That was the debt. But there were prophets, but no one was open. They were hidden. Okay, he had slaughtered endlessly. So Leo comes and says, "I'm the only one left." Means I'm the only one on the public stage. Just understand, there are others, but they're not recorded. Okay, that's before in Gemara. Okay, so we know there are other prophets, but their nevuah was not hutzur l'dayros. So therefore, there's no reason for us to record them. Okay, the only nevuah which is written for us in the Kisvei HaKodesh, nevuah shehutzur l'dayros. It's the Gemara at the end of the Megillah. So what did Eliyahu do? You probably all know the famous story that him and the Kohen Abal, he bought all the Kohen Abal there. They built two mizbachos, and so to speak, they cried all day that Baal should send them fire. Nothing happened. He ridiculed them. If you just read that parak, he rubbed it in, and then he says, "Okay, boys, what else is new?" And then he poured water on it, and a cloud came, and bingo, fire came. I don't know who was doing conductor for lightning. Whatever it was an unbelievable miracle. And everyone said, "Havayu hu Elokim, Havayu Elokim," and that's what you scream every Motzei Yom Kippur. That the Knesset Bris again. It's we had messed up the bris of Sinai. We were over Avodah Zarah. Now we went back into the bris, so we said once again, "Havayu Elokim." That's what you said. You say it 7 times, basically saying this idea is internalized into all my 7 midos. So to speak, when you scream it, don't scream it. You actually think it. That actually every aspect of you, every fiber of you somehow feels, believes, reacts to this. So the Havayu hu Elokim, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is Elokim. So that's what it is. If you look carefully, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei Elokim is the story of the perfect life in Eden, and then it's the foundation of our faith, but actually we don't experience it. We don't experience it. These upsurges of Shema Yisrael, when we really think of it seriously. Otherwise, based on what does this mean? Now, we know that the Ramban writes, Mefurish, Noiche Hashem Elokecha, so the Ramban writes, that's called Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shemayim, to believe that Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is Elokim. So if you want to become Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shemayim, it's somehow to contemplate the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei Elokim and take yourself back on in a space capsule back to Adam and Eden. So I don't know what you do there when after they finish the bracha into the what they think for 2 minutes, someone pauses until you say Shema, you scream loud and clear. Okay? Well, you're actually supposed to be trying to contemplate where you're holding in the idea of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei Elokim. To what extent is it real for you? And to that extent, you're the Makabel Ol Malchus Shemayim. That actually was supposed to be the meditation of all Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. That's Malchus. Kabbalas Ol Malchus. For sure, Ramban. Maybe you should learn the Ramban in Yisrael. The Ramban, this is Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shemayim. Anoichi Havaya Elokecha. Same thing. Okay, that's called Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shemayim. Actually, it's brought down Mefurish also in the Ramban. You can read it also. Look, the Rambam says it similarly in mitzvahs Asay Beis. On the mitzvah of Yichud Elokim, it's the second mitzvah where he describes this is Anoichi Hashem Elokecha, this is Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shemayim. I'm going to say for a mitzvah, so you can read that too. I mean, so far the Makarim are accurate. So this is two. So we know one thing. We know there's Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, essential God, according to Rambam. I'm going to leave with that. There are other interpretations. But at the end of the day, it means the essential God, which is the source of all. Let's leave it at that. Then I will say, there's another interpretation of Yud Kei Vav, which many of the G'dalim Kabbalim really hatcheted the Rambam. That's the truth. I can talk about the Gra, or Chaim Volozhiner, or David Luria, the Leshem, the whole base medrash, they hatcheted the Rambam on this, because they said God in essence is not even an idea form. You only know what it is and you don't know what it is. How could it have a name? A name is a description. In the world of essential God, there is no descriptions, there's no words, there's no ideas. There's no such thing as a Shem Etzem for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They discuss when is there a Shem Etzem, only when God already begins the process of creation, where there is God in somewhat of a finite form, even the highest level of finite, which we call Atzilus, there it's descriptive. Because once the Ein Sof is mitztam same, a tzimtzum has a description. But you need some kind of a tzimtzum to have a description. A name is a description. Therefore, the Eitaina, where the Medrash says, "Kodim shenivra olam hayahu shmoya gadol bilvad," it doesn't mean before the beginning of the process of creation. It means that process of creation called Bria. We know that the creation went into four processes: Atzilut, Bria, Yitzira, and Asiyah. Those who learned Tanya with me once would know that. I'm not going to explain it now. But that's what the Gra writes, and Reb Chaim writes, and the Radal writes, and the Leshem writes, that it means Kodim shenivra olam, before Bria, when there was still Atzilut, emanation of God, which was already God, I would say, of the interactive persona. The original state of creation where infinity created with itself an interactive persona. Chachma, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gvur, Tiferet, Netzach, Yisayit, Malchus, those midos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu started by God emanating from within himself a creative interactive persona. Now that creative interactive persona then practically created, and basically interacted. But in the original state of Atzilut, there's no I, thou. There's just God, but God in a certain form. God, when I say form, I mean conceptual form. There's now an interactive persona. It has Chochmah, it has Bina, it has Das. Those are Kalim, those are vessels of which the infinite now expresses itself into finite forms. A world of ideas, and ideas of finite form. So you must understand that's when that's Kodim shenivra olam, there was Hu Shmei Levadi, but before Atzilus there wasn't even that. So what does it mean, Yud Kei Vav Kei? So basically, the Gemara writes in Nichlas Kriyash, I mentioned it in the Shira last month, it means Kayim Muchlot, the absolute existent, referring to Rambam Hilchos Yisod Yater Perek Aleph Halach Aleph and Beis. Mean to say he's an existent, not existed because of something, therefore there's no reason, there's no beginning to him and no end to him. You, my friends, are only exist because of a certain reason. Should the reason stop being, you will stop being. The laws of science exist because of a certain reason. It's called the will of God. Should God choose not to continue willing the will of the laws of science, the laws of science will not exist. Therefore, that which keeps you together in a certain form, as opposed to molecules or whatever it be, would cease to exist, and you would not be. You exist because you exist within the context of laws of science. Why do you think, for one thing, do you really think that this form has to be? I mean, for goodness sake, the matter of this and this is the same, for goodness sake, just different forms of the same matter. So what keeps it together, this form? Nalakir, Ritzoyna Yisborach. Okay? And that's what we say, Mechash B'tuva B'choyim Tamid Ma'asav V'reishis, that God constantly wills the laws of science, and this, the whole creation and its form is constantly willed and wanted. God doesn't have to destroy the world. God has to stop wanting it. It's as simple as that. Well, you said that in Siddur, Mechash B'tuva B'chol Yom Tov Ma'asav V'reishis, that means God has to constantly want Ma'asav V'reishis. You don't say Sha'asa Orim Dolim, you say Oseh Achshav Orim Dolim, Kilo Lam Chasto. These are things which L'chara Pasha, I think I elaborated upon it last year, so I can roll through this. I just wanted to get, for people who weren't here last year, I have to put this in the box. So Yud Kei Vav Kei, it means either term essential God or essential source of reality. Elokim is already the forms of that source. That source emanated, created, and then there are forms there. The world you live in, you do not experience the energizer, you experience the form. Example, when you ever saw a film, no, Heintige Zeiten films are built differently, they're digital, but once upon a time, what were they? They were basically celluloid, like film, which had certain shapes in it, and you shot through it light, and then what happened on the screen was a picture. Great book called Illusions, you should read it, by, what's the name of the same guy who wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull? I forgot his name already. It's an excellent book. There's also a book, The Diary of Messiah. Okay, remind me and I'll tell you the name of the guy. We'll probably look it up here. Look up Illusions and you'll see it. What?
Richard Bach. Richard Bach.
No. Richard Bach, could be. Yeah, Richard Bach, could be. Could be, yeah. Try it. So basically, actually the truth is, when the man's sitting behind, what's really there, it's the same energy, but going through different tzimtzumim. So it's the same light going through different tzimtzumim, different shapes in the film is going to give you another picture. So when you sit with the old man with the baseball hat shooting the light, what does he see? Yeah, boy, there's nothing, man. This is light, man. Yeah, in this film. Yeah. So does he give it? What does he think about what's on the film? So garnish, it's light. And there's a tzimtzumims. But the guys inside the movie house eating their popcorn next to their friend, they're salivating. Right? They have hormonal, emotional experiences. Mamish, wow, you know what I mean? It depends where are you? Are you in the dark room with the bald guy with the baseball cap, which is shooting out the light? Or are you inside the theater with your friend, and you're looking there at Scarlett O'Hara and Gone with the Wind? Okay, that is so old your mother wouldn't remember it. Okay? So that's basically, we have to do Mariv, so I gotta let you guys go. So this is basically what Yud-Kei Vav-Kei Elokim, you know what Yud-Kei Vav-Kei Elokim means? It means he perceived the old man with the baseball cap. The Adam in Eden didn't just see the movie. He saw the movie through the perception of the old man with the baseball cap. He saw the creator in creation. He saw the author in the book. He saw the sculptor in the sculpture. He saw the artist in the painting. He saw cause and effect. He didn't just see a dog. He saw the Dvar Hashem, which is Mechayim Mahava, the dog. You understand? Well, that's what this is it's basically Dvar Hashem. So that's how he related to it. You see, it's like you live with, if you would take food and understand what food is really for, and that's how you would live with it, there's no way you would overeat. You only overeat because you decide food is there to nurture your psychological hang-ups, and you're bored, tired, nervous, angry, so you start evening the cake and evening the ice cream at 3 in the morning. Okay, whatever you do. I mean, I know I used to do that too, you know. I mean, somehow you always cut, you always cut it diagonal, so you always keep somehow it's finished. By the time you think it's finished. Why? Because I couldn't fall asleep. I had something on my head, what happens to me quite often. I walk around, thank God people are asleep. I walk around thinking, and go to the fridge. You know how I lost a lot of pounds? I stopped, don't go to the fridge. Very simple. Okay? That's a never push it. That's all you have to do. You have to decide certain hours. That's it. Ad kan Shabbos HaGadol. There's no fridge after a certain time, and that saves a lot of problems. You're young. You'll learn. Why? Because my perception of food is not just for nurturing me. It's for other things. That's why you have hamburgers and French fries and Coca-Cola and all the other garbage food that you eat. These stuff that they poison you with in the office before shiur, with all these sugars and carbs. Oh, brother, your dentists love Rabbi Lapian. Okay, I promise you, your mom's going to kill you when she sees the bill. Okay, but that's the way it is. But I understand. I was also young. I still am to a certain extent, but I don't do that anymore. Okay, I have my vices, but not that. Okay, but what's this from? Because you don't see Siba in the Teitzah. You don't even see it as a Teitzah anymore. You see it as an independent reality. And because you see it without the Siba, you see it independent, you give it its own meaning, which has nothing to do with its real meaning. So you're going to look at a piece of something, which really, this is for purpose A. You're going to forget its purpose, see it independent of its purpose, and give it its own meaning, which may be totally opposite of what its real purpose is. And that's what you do constantly. Because you don't see the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei in Elokim. You don't even see Elokim. You see chocolate cake. Okay? But even if you're a profound thing, you'd see Elokim, you wouldn't see Sibas Elokim. You wouldn't say Yud Kei Vav Kei Elokim. Adam Rishon saw the multiple reality of Seifa Eilam Ba'ad Seifa. Lashon HaGemara, Adam Rishon Ayam B'Seifa Eilam Ba'ad Seifa. It does not mean that he saw the Chinese drinking tea. It means he saw the multiple dimensions of reality. The typical Navi sees Mitabur ha'oretz va'ad kisei ha'kavod. You know how much information that is? Mitabur ha'oretz va'ad kisei ha'kavod. That's what he sees. And Adam Rishon was more than that. So that's what you're talking about, Yud Kei Vav Kei Elokim. That's the perception of reality that he saw. Now, you want to look at the Perik Beis, Perik Gimel, there's only twice that there's no Yud Kei Vav Kei Elokim there. Once, when the serpent introduces himself to Eve, B, when Eve is in dialogue with him. And those two psukim, all of a sudden, they cut away the Yud Kei Vav Kei from Elokim. A new perception of reality is introduced by serpent to Eve. Forget the source. I'm not saying don't be religious. Think Elokim. But forget the Yud Kei Vav Kei. Tazov et hasiba. Once you used to walk away from the siba, you think what they saw, so there's subjective interpretation. Once you've walked away from reason, you just have the din without the reason. You have your subjective interpretations, and then you do what you want with it. And that's the downfall of man, which we will continue next week.